Everywhere you looked, a huge crew, 340 staff. 108 of those are in the kitchen alone.
They have 3 kitchens.
There were rows and rows and rows of wok stations. There is the biggest wok I've ever seen in my life, and I haven't seen a lot, but these were massive. 2 men to handle carrying this thing around, just giant. After touring the kitchen, we were led into a really interesting place. Almost, I would say, a modern museum.
Even as you're walking through the hallways, they're dark, but the art is all lit up.
My favorite thing, though, were the old pictures, the old photos.
There was also a lot of old art, ancient art.
There were masks.
You come towards the end to this huge stone carving on the wall, and it was actually carved onto the wall here. It took the artist 6 months to complete it. It's in a very old style, and it portrays this whole community.
We were ushered into this gorgeous, gorgeous room. And they're laid out in a pattern of sweet and savory with no distinction between them. It was sort of a surprise every time you put something in your mouth, which direction it was going to be.
There was salty, sweet, bitter, and you kind of went around the table and your palate went up and down and in all these different ways, and it really kept you intrigued to keep tasting. The portions are really small, so it really kind of entices that sort of conversational eating with small portions.
I could go back and eat and eat and eat and eat these things. I think this is also a great representation of dandan noodles, and that's what I've been looking for. Sort of a clean, easy to eat version of these noodles where the meat was crispy and interesting and the noodles were perfectly cooked.
The highlight for me was definitely there was a fried noodle like ball, and it was filled with purple sweet potato, and that was just outstanding. I could eat those every day. You had to figure out what it was as you were eating it, and the texture of the crunch of the noodles was unlike anything we tried here, but also unlike most things I've had to eat just in general.
We were lucky enough to have a small private showing of a gentleman with his many masks on, and there we were, not 5 feet away from this guy. And I was flummoxed. I couldn't figure out how this guy was changing his mask so fast. A master. Still don't know how he does it. If I were to bring anybody to Chengdu, I would bring them to this place. In the food, in the art, in the antiques, you have a reality of what this place was, and what this place is, and what this place will be. A complete story in Chengdu.
Today is our final day here in Chengdu.
Today is a day that we've been looking forward to and not looking forward to.
It was quite a challenging day for us.
It's a day of our own personal, maybe uncomfortable feelings about cooking in China, cooking in a very strange new environment.
We were going to prepare a dish kind of from what we've learned from this trip. So first we went to a market this morning, and that was really an incredible experience. We didn't really know what to expect.
Was this going to be a supermarket, a modern Western style market? Is this going to be a farmer's market, what I'm used to, going to a place where farmers gather to bring their wares?
And it was kind of a combination of both. Downstairs was the seafood in the middle, and it was all live and fresh, and that was really amazing to see it like that.
In this culture, live is very important to the selling of something like fish, of course. So we had live eels and live frogs, live everything, really. What I was intrigued with and what I was impressed with was it wasn't a fishy smelling place. This was a very clean place, which is unusual for a market of this caliber.
Then around it was all the spices and sauces.
Jars and jars of different vinegars and oils, and the list goes on and on and on.
Upstairs was all the produce in the middle, and around the outside was all the meat, which was really interesting to see.
And again, there was this lack of bad odor. Everything smelled very fresh. Beef, pork, chicken, duck.
There's all different parts of the animal.
You name the animal, they had it hanging in some way or some part of it somewhere in this market, usually on the outskirts.
There was also cured meats, there was prepared things, they were making dumplings. It was really overwhelming, all the chili paste and vegetables, mushrooms, everything that was going on was just really fun to see.
We started to gather our ingredients for our specific dishes. I bought a couple of spices, knowing full well that the school we were heading to had the majority of the spices we need. And then a ton of vegetables, more than I should have taken, honestly, for one dish.
It was just a really, really fun experience. It kind of started the day off on such a great foot. We both were really excited and kind of forgot that we were nervous that we were going to be cooking and using a wok and things that we weren't familiar with.
An hour later, 2 big bags in hand, we arrive at the culinary school.
And it was the same cooking school that we went to, but at a different location.
And there we were on our great round cutting boards, and we started our French term called mise en place, the gathering of our ingredients, the preparation.
We washed everything, did all our knife cuts, kind of started formulating how we were going to put everything together, the sauce work, and just kind of compiling all the ingredients we wanted and separating it all out and having it laid out in front of us so we had a better game plan.
And luckily we got to use our own Western knives, so I have 10 fingers still. No cleavers involved, but I did buy a cleaver, so I will practice. I started with this concept of doing a dish called Szechuan-inspired healthy vegetables, and I wanted to add a little more texture in the form of a crunch, so I deep fried some beautiful onion rings. And I also wanted to get that little bit of Szechuan pepper hit in there. So what I did in the dredge was I added a little bit of Szechuan pepper, ground Szechuan pepper, into the flour and cornstarch, and a little bit of chili as well. And then my first technique on the wok was deep frying. After that was done, relatively successfully, I emptied the wok and started the process of building a multi-layered dish. And every single time I used this wok, I got a little more comfortable with it and a little more intrigued with it. I decided to cook all of my ingredients a little bit separately and basically made 3 or 4 different dishes with different flavors. So if I'd gone too far with the salt on one or too far with the acid on another, at the end I could combine them to sort of a cohesive dish. I thought that I'd tapped into something that had a taste memory over the last week. Tossed everything together, made about twice the amount I needed for a dish. With a little help, guided my wok and plated this dish. I knew that I had good flavor and I knew I had good textures. What I'd basically made was a big Asian stew. The culinary gents, the chefs of the school were very, very kind, I think, and they tasted my dish very quickly and they gave it the big thumbs up. But I think they would have done that to anything I put on a plate. So I think they were very generous to us.
I wanted to do something that really highlighted the numbingness, that unique numbing flavor from the prickly ash. Everything else that was in it, I kind of drew from different inspirations from this trip. The amaranth is something that I'm familiar with working with at home, but I also saw it at the farm and was surprised to see it here. The celtus, again, something familiar, but also it's from here. It's a Chinese vegetable, so to not use it here kind of seems ridiculous to me. It had to be a part of it because it's something I really enjoy, and this is its origin. The squid was kind of an inspiration from when we were at the Jinjiang Hotel. The pieces of the melon and the mushroom and all of that was just kind of like a calming earth, more neutral flavors. The sweet potato leaves are something that I've had once before in the US and was really surprised to have here, and it's something that I can't find in the US. So it was great to have such accessibility to a product like that, and I really wanted that to be a part of my dish. And it's such a great thing to quick cook in the wok, and nothing could cook it that way except for a wok because it's so hot, so fast. I got a little bit caught up in what I was doing and maybe overcomplicated it a lot, but I was really happy with the broth, which I wanted to be the focus of the dish, and that bitterness and kind of astringency and how those are the types of things that they focus on eating in the summertime because it cools your body within.
Jessica, how do we summarize this trip in just a few words?
I think the best way to summarize this whole trip is numb, hot, fresh, and tasty, which are the 4 rules to Mapo tofu.
And I think that Chinese food in general, I think we're looking at a very powerful cuisine, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it